Let's go get my microphone on there. This is the HDI Local Chapter's live stream weekly show. I am your host, Tom Wilk. And whether you're a new viewer tonight or a dedicated follower, whether you're watching us live on Twitch on Wednesday night, or you're watching this recording on our YouTube or our Twitch channels, we welcome you to the show. And of course, we got to go with all the YouTubers and streamers say, if you like the show, click on like and subscribe to us so we can help share this wonderful network with everybody out there. Okay, before we get started with the show, let's talk about our show sponsor, Robert Half Talent Solutions. So Robert Half is a talent solutions firm and a leading provider of IT professionals needed to build, deploy, and operate technology in this digital and cloud world. And they do this by placing highly skilled IT professionals, whether it's on a contract, a project, or even a full-time permanent basis. They basically help you keep your businesses going. And right now, the way the market is, as a hiring manager, I know that is difficult and using them is great. Now, having said that, not only is Robert Half a great sponsor for our show, but they are a great partner for the HDI local chapters. Over the past year, they have helped us connect the community that's been affected by this COVID pandemic for well beyond what it needed to be, right? And they did this by helping us connect with people across the country. And what happened out of that is we have started opening up brand new chapters or revitalizing some chapters that fell defunct, like San Antonio and Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, and now we're starting looking at Stanford, Texas. We even may have one in Hawaii and Alaska. So it's pretty cool. All right, so let's get on with the show. Our guest today is Jesse Nolan. Jesse is an IT director at the Westland Real Estate Group, but he's also the founder of TABGEEKS IT Professionals Network. So we're going to really talk about that tonight. He hosts the #1 Google Workspace podcast called Google Workspace Recap, as well as supporting IT support, and is expanding the network to include shows on SaaS, which if you don't know what that is, it's software as a service or subscription as a service, and cyber security. He speaks regularly on tech panels and contributes to multiple publications. Jesse also volunteers as a disaster field technician with the Information Technology Disaster Resource Center. Welcome to the show, Jesse.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me.
So, like many of our guests, we only bring awesome people on our show. So we mentioned a lot of things. Not only, Jesse, are you like a full-time technology director, but you also started your own organization and you do things on the side. So let's get into that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about like how you got into IT and why you started TABGEEKS.
Sure. So going all the way back to the beginning, and this is my favorite question to ask on my supporting IT support podcast as well, is how'd you get into IT? Because nobody's story is the same. And so many people said, oh yeah, I went and I got a degree in poli-sci, and then my first job was in IT, and now I'm in IT for the rest of my life. So I knew that I wanted to do tech since I was in high school. I started my own business in high school doing local computer repairs. And after I finished high school, that's exactly what I did. I just continued doing that and growing the career over time, just, built my own home lab in my bedroom kind of a thing and continued building it up from there. I did take a little bit of a break and do a stint in social media marketing. So I got some marketing skills, which at the time seemed like a good idea. Shortly after that, when I got out of that, it seemed like a bad idea because I just wasted 4 years and did not get that experience. But now some of those skills are coming back now as I'm doing production for TABGEEKS. So you never know.
Yeah. So tell us about that. What is TABGEEKS and what made you? What I shouldn't say made you, but why did you start that? What was the drive behind that?
Sure. So today, TABGEEKS is a independent network of shows that is driving, I guess you could say, the democratization of information around information technology, putting it in less cool marketing speak. It's, IT folks talking about IT to other IT folks. Now, it didn't start as a content network. I actually started this with my wife 4 years ago as a conference company, building conferences for IT professionals like myself, because quite simply, I was frustrated with the types of conferences that were out there. There were pitch shows. They were all done by the big groups, and they were all shoving their product down your throats. And I was like, well, there's a couple of them that are, that are doing the independent route, but they're still very heavily focused on one group or one area's products. What if if we did something for the midsize, small to midsize businesses that was able to provide in 3 days just a myriad of sessions across all of the areas that we have to deal with, because you don't have specialists when you're at that level of business. When you're at Google, you can be just an IT, desktop support, and you're only doing desktop support, and that's all you do forever. But, on any given day, I could get a phone call because the coffee machine isn't working. And of course, that falls under my purview because it runs on electricity. So I wanted to start a conference company to be able to provide that. And we were doing quite well and started building it up. And it was not easy, because anybody who's been in the conference business or in the show business, you got to build a community and finding people. And we're very cynical IT folks. So actually getting people to believe that I'm not selling something to them and just wanted them to have a good time and to learn, they're like, nah, that's not a thing. Right. And so we were progressing well, and we had our third show coming up. We were all booked up and ready to go. And then COVID hit. And so I took several months off, as I had to focus literally day and night on my day job, which was leading technology for a 500-person real estate group, to go from 0% remote to 100% remote, and then teach everybody, oh, here's how you work remote, and became the de facto overnight remote expert, even though I was just sitting there reading the books at the time on how to be remote. And so about 9 months later, I made the decision. I was ready to get back into doing TABGEEKS, and I had been doing the Supporting IT Support podcast just as a content tool for getting the word out and interviewing awesome people in IT. And I was like, wait a minute, there's a real traction here. And I had started doing a second podcast, which is Google Workspace Recap, which is just a weekly show going over all of the updates in Google Workspace. And, it writes itself because they put out updates and we talk about them and do analysis from an expert point of view. So it's great. But I did it every week for a year, and it took off. We got 10,000 downloads in a year from inception. And I was like, well, okay, everybody's working virtual. Everybody's trying to do digital transformation. Nobody knows what's flying. Nobody can keep up. Let's expand this. And now I've brought all of my shows. I'm in the process of bringing them all onto YouTube. And so hence the good backdrop here, and redid my garage. And we can get more into that if you'd like.
Yeah, no. And so that was cool. So I know I have to, I told this to Jesse. I'm just checking out the comments here, but I said, this is probably more, the show's probably more for me than anybody else, because Jesse's been doing this for what, 4 years, and he's got an awesome setup. So, Jesse, it's funny because your background looks kind of similar to mine, but that's not really what's behind the scenes. I love that. So give us a little look about, maybe behind the show there. I thought it was pretty interesting.
This is an illusion. So that's a 10-foot curtain. It's a little bit of soundproofing in the background there. That I got soundproofing tiles going up there. It's a 10 by 10 space, and it's in my garage actually. And a little while ago, my wife and I were basically just sharing an office, a small office, which was a spare bedroom in our house. And we're like, well, this is great, but if we're going to be working from home, we got to find a better way to do this, because we both speak rather loudly. And if we're on calls all day long, we were constantly getting crosstalk, and it was terrible. And so, we tried leveraging each other's schedules and figuring out a way to, okay, you can have a call then, you can have a call then. That was not going to work. So I started thinking, well, we've got this 2-car garage, and we sold one of our cars mid-pandemic because we weren't going anywhere. And maybe if, we just parked on the street, we could use this 20 by 20 space. And so I pulled out Lucidchart one night and spent way too much time coming up with the design, but actually drew out a proper architectural diagram on Lucidchart of what this might look like. And we handed it off to a contractor, got a couple of bids, and we just finished doing the construction now.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and you probably think I can thank you from the company I work for, because we're in the construction business for lumber and such. So, but seriously, so on our show, one of the things I shared with you pre-show maybe, that the original founding producer of the show, we debated, I'll put it nicely, we debated on whether to go to Twitch or to go to YouTube to do the live streaming, and we picked Twitch. And one of the things that we were saying was, all of our shows can contain anything related to getting into technology except for Twitch, live streaming, or not live streaming, but YouTubing and video gaming, because everybody, especially the younger generation, know how to do that. But let me ask you this question. Most of the twitching originally when it started out, a lot of gaming, and I understand that I still don't do a lot of Twitch because I'm busy doing all these other things like being on Twitch, but there's a lot more out there than just gaming streaming now. So whether you do it on Twitch, whether you do it on YouTube, or any of these other things, like, give us some advice to, maybe the people coming up on, maybe they don't want to be a gaming streamer, but getting into the technology. What kind of equipment, research, like topics? You and I talked about this pre-show. Like, your show is one of the few that's talking about technology and not necessarily from a vendor point of view. So, giving some advice on things to talk about, topics, what's hot to talk about, on your show and such. And not that you want competition, but, we all can listen to 20 podcasts a week. So unless you're putting out, 5 a day, it's good to share, right? Share some knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a ton of space here. Like I said, or you were referencing pre-show, there's only a handful of people that are really doing ongoing business technology shows, whether it's on YouTube or in the podcast space, that are not, the mega corporations. So there's a couple of different big companies that have their podcast, sure. But I've also noticed that those will be so focused on their product, they'll forget about what they got into this in the first place, which is to try and share information about the industry or about what they're working on and things like that. And, I'll quote or I'll reference to a YouTube video that I was just watching from MKBHD, which is a consumer tech, high quality YouTuber. He's been doing this since he was 15 in his bedroom, and he's just grown it into a multi-million-dollar a year business. And he was having an interview by somebody else who interviews creators on how they do what they do. And he was saying two things that I think are relevant here. One is that YouTube will never go away. And so there's, TikTok and there's these other platforms. But once everybody blows up on TikTok, the other platforms, they go to YouTube. So I'm pretty happy with just the idea of going to YouTube, even if you start out in the podcast space like I did, and then you bring the shows, even if it's just conversational like this, onto YouTube. It's just an enormous audience, coupled with the fact that it's the second largest search engine in the world, second only to, of course, Google, and both owned by Google. So excellent integration there, and the ad network helps. And what essentially they were saying is that if you're going to get into doing this is the other thing that I wanted to reference from them is he compared it to wanting to go in to be a professional basketball player. If you're getting burned out in the park, and this is almost a quote of what he said, if you're getting burned out in the park playing a pickup game with your friends at basketball, you really shouldn't go and be a professional basketball star. But if you are practically obsessed with it, then yes, you can, because you need that level of dedication. The same is true for content and YouTube and technology. You have to have a special level of dedication to technology and to what we do. And I mean, it's been my whole life, I've just been fascinated by both technology and the business of technology, and the symbiotic relationship between the two is business can't work without technology, and technology is nothing without the business engine. And you've got to really have that passion. And it does help that the shows that I've been doing, one is interviewing awesome people in IT for supporting IT support, which I'm actually sneak peek, just changing the name to. It's now going to be Heroes of IT. So that broadens the scope of the show a little bit. And our original brand for TABGEEKS was Home of the IT Hero. So it brings back the IT Superman branding there.
Gotcha.
So some good artwork that we can reuse with that. I've got a whole shirt with, circuits on it and a shield, and the whole thing is pretty cool.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that.
Oh, absolutely. I'll send you the graphics afterwards. That's awesome. Essentially, it allows us to interview more than just IT support folks. So it's people in cybersecurity. For example, I've already started doing that. I was talking to Dr. Eric Cole, who started out his career in the CIA doing cybersecurity. And he was like, I don't want to work for, the man anymore. And so he went off and did his own thing, and he's grown and grown and grown his career. And now he's the consultant to Bill Gates for cybersecurity.
Oh, that guy. Dude, okay. Now you're talking about, yeah.
So, I was able to get him on there just by being one of the great shows that are out there. And his publicist came to me and said, hey, we'd like to have him on your show. I was like, oh, hell yeah. And he was a fantastic speaker. We probably could have gone for like 3 shows worth of content, but I had to cut it down to an hour.
Wow.
And I imagine we're almost at time here.
Yeah, I was going to say we're about down to a minute, but so there's so much to ask you. I may have to have you back again sometime. But I
didn't do the hardware reference. If you want me to cover that.
Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, we should do that, because I think people would like to know, if to really get into it, how to do that from somebody that's really doing it, But I got to ask you, so you've talked about cybersecurity. We had a guest on our show at I think it was the very last episode of season 1 was Jimmy Sanders. Have you met or had Jimmy Sanders on your show? I think he's cybersecurity for Netflix DVD, and he's out on the West Coast. So Amy and Terry have his information if you're interested in getting him on the show. And of course now my dog's barking in the background, so I don't know if we can hear that. But anyway, we are about out of time, Jesse. So before we go, is there any parting words that you would like to give to the audience about, TABGEEKS? We'd love to have you and Terry can talk to you about being on, getting involved in the different chapters across the country to get the word out about your organizations, because it's a great organization. I'd love to hear the non-biased, well, at least not company biased IT opinions, right?
Yeah. So real quick, if you want to get into the podcast space, just start. Honestly, doesn't matter what gear you have. You can use your iPhone. You can use your Android phone. Just start, because the most important thing when it comes to this is, well, it not sucking. So don't use a 1995 computer to produce this, unless your show is about producing on a 1995 computer, which would be pretty cool. Perfect. But it's about having decent sound and consistency. So you can record on, whatever headset you're already using for your Zoom calls. When I started out, was just using my Jabber headset that I'm using in my regular calls and my webcam on my computer. Now I've upgraded a little bit. Now that I'm going on to bringing this to YouTube, I've invested a little bit more in hardware and in the ambiance, so the studio, and getting all this set up and having everything behind me. But really, just start. That's the best way to go, because live or online is better than perfect. And in doing so, you're going to be able to outpace everybody else who starts and it's amazing, and then they fizzle because they tried to do too much at one time. So start, continue, build it up. As far as TabGeeks and what we're doing, we're continuing to grow the channel. It's all going to be on YouTube. Our TabGeeks YouTube channel is just TabGeeks. So tabgeeks.com is our website. tabgeeks.com/YouTube will go straight to our YouTube channel. And we're working on a couple of shows, one for SaaS, one for cybersecurity, one on disaster technology, which I'm trying to hash out with the ITDRC. And, the rest of the gear that you can use, you can pick up a microphone like this, or there's a lot, because of the pandemic, there's a lot of new gear that's coming out that's much cheaper. So you can get a really good microphone for streaming or for being on calls that's $100 instead of $250, right? The webcam that I'm using is, it retails for like $180, but if you ask Dell nicely, they'll give it to you for $125. This is a Dell Ultra Sharp 4K webcam. Lighting, I've got a window in front of me. That's it. I look great because I have a window in front of me. So, do it during the day or start in the podcast space where you don't need lighting, right?
Yeah,
that's what
right.
I did for almost 2 years there. So,
I told you that's how I kind of started. I'm no professional at it. I started out with a, Logitech webcam, which I'm still using, and, microphone. And I just, that's what the challenge was from our original producer, was just do it. Like, it doesn't matter. We got to get into it. We'll get better. And so I hadn't done anything like that before I started the show. So we did that. All right. So I'd like to thank you, Jesse, for being on our show. On the screen now is the TabGeeks website. Also, thank you for watching the channel. And if you want to find out more about HDI local chapters, you can check us out at hdilocalchapters.org. And if you're not a member and you don't know much about the community, get involved. Go to the website, find out a local chapter, and get involved, because we meet awesomely cool guests like Jesse, and it's awesome. So thank you, Jesse. We appreciate you being on our show, and might have to have you back on to talk about your superhero stuff and different things. So we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely.
For sure. Thank you, man.
My pleasure. Thank you.